7:35, Selina Scott and Jeff Banks join forces with Eamon Holmes of Open Air.
McMahon! Oh, a shame. That's got to be one of the best goals of the season, even by Liverpool standards.
Trap in the middle. Wilkinson, Clark! Oh, magic! Magic! What a lovely goal!
And with the Grand National coming up on Saturday, you may like to know that the triumphs and disappointments from 50 years of the legendary race have been captured on this new BBC video, available for just £9.99. Now on BBC One, we join Margot MacDonald in the advice shop to look at the benefits shake-up.
Hello. The benefits shake-up is almost on us, and whether you're young or old, able-bodied or disabled, if you're claiming benefits, you're going to be affected by the changes.
We're Ivy and Bob, and we're pensioners living in Norwich in a council flat.
I'm Julia, I'm 22 years old, and until last month I was employed here as a temporary worker.
My name is Leslie, and I'm a single parent of a 3-year-old child.
My name is Betty, and I have been disabled all my life.
Well, we'll meet Betty and Leslie and the others later on in this programme, because today we're looking at pensioners, young people, disabled people and single parents to see how each group will be affected by the new benefit system. And I'm joined in the studio by people who are representative of these different groups, and they've all got strong views on the changes as well. Also with us is Sally Robertson, who is a welfare rights expert from the Disability Alliance. Oh, and just in case you're wondering what John Lee is doing signing away over there, when we've also got subtitles, it's because a lot of deaf people who need to know about the benefits shake-up rely on signing as their main language. And from April the 11th, we'll all have to start speaking a new language if we hope to be understood by the DHSS. Supplementary benefit, with all its complexities, is being replaced by a new system called income support. The single payments element of SupBen is being scrapped in favour of the social fund, a separate new system of loans. Family income supplement, or FIS, which helps low-wage families, becomes family credit. Housing benefit stays, but many of the rates and rules have changed. Well, so much for the jargon. What about the people at the receiving end of the changes? Well, we took our cameras up to Norwich to meet some people that we saw at the start of the programme.
I'm Julia, I'm 22 years old, and until last month I was employed here as a temporary worker, packing chocolates for Roundtree Mackintosh. Last month they laid off all the temporary workers, so now I'm unemployed and I'm claiming supplementary benefit of £30.40 a week. At the moment I'm staying with a friend rent-free, but I'm looking for a flat or bedsit for myself. But in Norwich that's quite difficult because accommodation is quite expensive, and most landlords will ask for a large deposit and 4 weeks rent in advance. The going rate for a bedsit in Norwich is about £30 a week, so with the deposit and 4 weeks in advance it would easily come to over £200, which is a lot of money to find. At the moment, while I'm claiming supplementary benefit, the DHSS will pay me a single payment which will cover the deposit and the month's rent in advance. Otherwise I just wouldn't have the money. Hello, I'm ringing about the flat that was advertised in a local paper this morning.
Well, how are the changes going to affect Julia and her chances of finding a flat? At the moment, she's receiving SupBen of £30.40 a week. After April, because she's under 25, she'll only be entitled to £26.05 on income support. That's a loss of £4.35. While her circumstances remain the same, she'll get transitional protection that covers the loss, so she won't be immediately worse off, and we'll explain what transitional protection means in a minute. At the moment, Julia could get a single payment to cover the deposit on a bed sit. After the 11th, she'll have to apply to the social fund for a loan, but she'll be turned down because she hasn't been in benefit for long enough. So she'll probably have to find the cost of a deposit herself without DHSS help. Sally Robertson, quite glibly talking about transitional protection there. What is it and who does it apply to?
Transitional protection is only for some people who are getting supplementary benefit in the very last week of supplementary benefit. It effectively freezes their rate of benefit if that is higher than what they'd be entitled to in the first week of income support.
Are there any people who are definitely excluded from this?
About 250,000 people won't get transitional protection, the government estimates.
Is it worthwhile people going to the CAB or an advice centre just now to work out whether or not they should be caught in this transitional protection net?
Absolutely. People should be taking advice, making sure they're getting the maximum supplementary benefit to which they're entitled, making sure their transitional addition has been correctly worked out. The rules can be really, really complex.
Right. The other thing that we talked about there when we were talking about Julia was the fact that she was apparently, anyway, going to lose out in the slightly longer term and that she wouldn't have access to the social fund. Well, why not?
Two things there. With the social fund, Julia, I don't think, would get a grant from the social fund, and to get the budgeting loan, she's got to have been on supplementary benefit or income support for 26 weeks, and she hasn't met that condition. So she fails at the first hurdle.
So she's just out.
Yeah, but she'll get the transitional protection for some time.
Right, well, Todd Austin's been looking at how he reckons the young people are going to be affected by the changes. And if I ask you to tell me in 30 seconds, what would you say?
They're going to be mainly affected by independence, really. Originally, young people could, want to leave home, and they could get the support. They could get rent in advance and a security, but now they can't. So they're going to have to stay at home, and obviously this puts more strain on the family because obviously all families don't get on.
The changes are about social security benefit, but the government has also said that it wants people to move in search of work. Now, are these changes going to make it more difficult for young people to move to work?
Well, I think so, yes, because people are going to move about, and then when they get to the area, if they leave home, they get to the area, the first thing is you need somewhere to live. But you can't get into anywhere to live because you can't afford the rent in advance and you can't afford deposits. And also, hostels won't take young people because they won't, especially young people, 16, 17-year-olds, because they won't be receiving any benefits at all.
I want to ask you about that, the 16, 17-year-olds. Now, theoretically, none of them should need benefits because they're all supposed to get the chance of a YTS course.
Well, in September, it's going to be YTS or nothing, really. And young people are going to get no money at all unless they take a YTS. And if they do take a YTS, while they're waiting for one to come through, they'll receive £15 a week. But people who refuse, looks like nothing for them.
Todd, thank you very much. Well, from young people to the effect of changes on pensioners. Are pensioners going to be any better off than young people? Let's go back to Norwich.
We're Ivy and Bob, and we're pensioners living in Norwich in a council flat.
4 years ago, I retired as a foundry manager. And through paying a stamp from the age of 14, I'm entitled to a retirement pension for myself and my wife of £76.59 per week to live on. Ivy, can you come and sign your pension book, please? Due to our pension not being sufficient, we get a rent and rate rebate each week from the council.
After the rebate, instead of paying £18 rent, we pay £9, and instead of paying £8 rates, we pay £4.
Here's the money for the rent collector when he comes, Ivy. Will you put it in the book, please?
We wouldn't be able to afford to pay all the rent and rates.
It's a big help. We couldn't manage without it, really. We wouldn't get through the week.
At present, Ivy and Bob's housing benefit clearly makes a big difference to them. It reduces their renting rates by about half. After April the 11th, their benefit will be worked out differently, and at first glance, they look to be receiving £2 more in rebate. But nearly all of this will be lost because everyone will have to pay the first 20% of their rates bill without help from housing benefit. In Bob and Ivy's case, once they've paid 20% of their rates, they'll be 29 pence a week better off under the changes in housing benefit. Well then, Sally, according to what we've heard and read, they are winners.
Indeed.
29 pence a week better off.
If you gain a penny, you're a winner.
Uh-huh. Well, how many winners are there going to be and how many losers under the new system of housing benefit?
Well, there's over 5 million losers under the new housing benefit scheme, and God knows how many winners.
Oh dear. Right. Well, we know there are some. Bob and Ivy are two. We can name 2 winners. But why are people going to be losers?
The main reason is everyone has to pay 20% of their general rates across the board, all housing benefit claimants. Secondly, there's the new capital limit for housing benefit, that if you have over £6,000 in savings, you're booted out altogether. Now, 1/3 of 1 million pensioners are booted out of housing benefit just because of that one vicious change.
Right, well, I'm so happy you mentioned pensioners because other pensioners will be affected in different ways. And here's a pensioner. She's Lillian Melton and she comes from Ealing in London. Lillian, have you claimed single payments in the past?
Yes, several times. I've had to fight for them. I've had to go to tribunals to get them, but I've got them.
Uh-huh.
After going to tribunal.
What sort of things did you get your single payments for?
I've had for bed linen and shoes and also gas stove. They allowed me £160 for a new gas stove because the one I had was broken, wasn't safe. And so I've had to buy one and get one, pay £5 a week on for the new one now because they didn't allow me enough. And several things.
But the system of single payments is going to be scrapped, and instead of single payments there's going to be the social fund. Now, supposing you had to take on a loan for another new cooker, say, or something else big like
in the
that,
house, yes.
would you do it?
No, I'd have to buy second-hand. I'd have to save up and buy second-hand. I wouldn't be able to do it. I just couldn't take on any more commitments.
One group that's definitely going to be affected by the loss of weekly editions this time is single parents.
My name is Leslie and I'm a single parent of a 3-year-old child. I have a part-time community programme job at Norfolk Homemakers, which is a scheme set up to help people who are newly independent with all the problems of settling into your own place. Because my job is part-time and the wages are low, I still get supplementary benefit.
And this is a saucer, Dylan?
Because my son is handicapped, he needs constant attention,
This is a ladle.
so he has to have one-to-one childminding all the time that I'm at work.
And this is
The cost of
a knife.
childminding is taken into account when the DHSS is working out what my income is. It looks at the income after the expense of going to work, i.e. childcare, which is a very major expense. Because there's extra washing, because he's incontinent and he's sick quite a lot, I get an allowance for extra laundry and for extra heating needs. He's been in hospital twice with hypothermia, so you can imagine the heating costs are quite high, just keeping him warm.
They're
not very with us, eh?
Not very with us.
Well, I own my own house, and I get help with the interest part of the mortgage. There's a repairs allowance to cover repairs and maintenance. Some insignificant amount, like £1.95 a week.
Dylan.
Taking into account mortgage interest, childcare costs, the extra heating and laundry allowance, I get altogether £71 a week from SupBen. So you can knock it off.
Will Leslie's problems about childcare costs, part-time work and caring for a disabled child be made easier or not come April? At the moment, Leslie gets the long-term rate of SupBen, but under income support, there will be no long and short-term rates. Everyone over the age of 25 will receive a basic allowance of £33.40, so Leslie will lose out there. Her present weekly editions will be scrapped and replaced by premiums. In her case, she'll get a family premium, a lone parent premium, and a disabled child premium. That's £16 in all. and that's considerably more than our present additions. But any gain will be lost because of what happens to our childcare costs. At the moment, the DHSS meets the expense of employing a childminder, £35 a week. After April, she'll have to find this money from her giro. Her mortgage interest will carry on being paid by income support, but the repairs addition of £1.95 a week will be scrapped after April. So, will Leslie in the long run be better off? At the moment, she gets £71 a week in sup-in. Under income support, she'll get £43.23, and that's a loss of £28.37. However, she won't lose out immediately because she'll get transitional protection to cover that amount, which she'll carry on getting just as long as her circumstances stay the same. Now, what exactly does this mean, that she'll get transitional protection if her circumstances stay the same? What do we mean by that?
If her circumstances stay the same, stable, she could be getting transitional protection at the turn of the century because she's going to be getting a large transitional addition. However, not every change of circumstances will reduce or lead to the loss of your transitional addition. For example, if she moves houses but her mortgage interest stays the same, there's no change.
Right.
That doesn't affect the addition. If her mortgage goes down, that's a change of circumstances, but it won't affect the addition. Only certain changes of circumstances will affect the addition.
Well, I'd like you to meet another guest this afternoon. Grace Amber is a single parent and she's involved in welfare rights work with other mothers at a nursery in South East London. Grace, since I know you of old, I have the feeling that you'll know exactly how you're going to be affected as a single parent under the changes. What's going to happen to you?
Actually, my money will be slightly increased to take in my new general rates charge, but without transitional protection, I would be £8 a week worse off.
Are there any single parents who are actually going to lose that amount of money, £8 say, or a fair amount of money every week?
I don't think there's anyone that's going to lose it, but for new single parents coming in, they won't be up to the levels that, say, I and others are.
Right. So people who are already on the sort of benefits...
They will be frozen, their money will be frozen until their circumstances change.
Right.
But for anybody coming in now, registering after the new changes, their money will be substantially less than the rest of us.
Now, if you're a single parent and if you're doing part-time work,
yes,
then the DHSS, they don't actually give you money in your hand, but what they do is allow you to earn a certain amount of money.
You're allowed to earn a certain amount.
Now, how's that going to change?
Well, whereas before, your fares, lunches and childminding expenses would be ignored and they deduct from the rest of your income, they're not allowing for those expenses anymore. So whatever you're earning, they're going to look at that whole figure and start deducting from that.
That means your basic benefit then would be reduced?
Will be much reduced, because if your childminding costs us, say, £30 a week, they're going to take £30 a week. They're not going to exclude that anymore.
Is that going to have the effect of persuading single parents to stay at home and with the children rather than try to do a job as well?
It could do, because also the part-time hours have been reduced. It's no longer 30 hours part-time work you can do. It's now down to 24 hours. So it is going to really deter some people from going out to work.
Grace, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Well, let's look now at how the benefits shake-up will affect another key group, and that is people with disabilities.
My name is Betty, and I have been disabled all my life. Recently have been in a wheelchair, but previously worked in a shoe factory and have a very small occupational pension and my state pension, which is inadequate, so that it's topped up by supplementary benefit. I'm on long-term supplementary benefit of £38 for living expenses. The maximum heating addition of
£4.55, a clothing edition, laundry edition and domestic edition of £35. I have a domestic help that comes in 2 hours every day. The domestic edition is given for things to be done which I cannot do myself. Watering plants, opening windows, ironing, and any other task that I cannot do myself. The clothing allowance covers the fact that the splint wears my clothes up because it's very hard. I have a laundry edition because of my disability, which means I have to do a lot more washing, and I'm on the long-term heating, or the maximum heating, because of my paralysis, which means that I get frozen if the heating is not on. And I couldn't do without the heating edition, and I couldn't do without the laundry edition or the domestic edition, because they're essential.
As we saw in the film, Betty receives 4 weekly additions to her sup ben, and that comes to a grand total of £51.45. After the 11th of April, her additions will be scrapped and she'll qualify instead for 2 premiums, a severe disability premium and a higher pensioners premium. Now, together, these will come to only £37.80. That's £13 less than her weekly additions. She gets £32.31 in sup ben, but she'll only be entitled to £12.67 from income support, which means a loss of £19.64. But once again, Betty will qualify for transitional protection to cover this amount. Sally, who qualifies for the severe disability premium? Is it people who have an extraordinarily bad disability or something like that?
No, it's people who can pass a number of technical hurdles, right? If you're under 60, you must also be getting the basic disability premium. If you're 60 or older, you must be getting the higher pensioner premium. That's the first hurdle. The second one is you must be getting attendance allowance. The third one is you must technically count as living alone, and living alone is used in a real technical sense.
Well, come on, you either do or you don't. What does it mean?
Well, if you have someone who's living with you temporarily, there for a couple of months, they've got their normal home elsewhere, they don't count as living with you.
Right.
Right? That won't stop you from getting the severe disability premium. If you are a genuine joint occupier, you share your house with another disabled person perhaps, whether or not they're also getting attendance allowance, you're a genuine joint occupier, you don't count as living with them, even though you're living together. It's only certain people who will boot you out of passing that hurdle.
Sally, this sounds quite complicated, yet one of the ideas behind the whole system being changed is that it should be simpler to understand and it should operate more simply. How will people get this severe disability premium? Will it happen automatically, or will they have to apply for it specially?
It'll be semi-automatic. When they claim income support, they'll put down details on the form. I think a lot of people might fail to get the severe disability premium because the DHSS and they won't recognise that they do count as living alone because the concept is so technical.
Right, so to make sure that they do get it, what would someone in that position do?
Seek advice. Maybe read the Disability Rights Handbook, which lists all the people who don't count as living with you.
Thank you, Sally. However, now I'd like to look at these changes from another point of view, this time from the point of view of carers who look after sick, disabled or elderly people at home. And joining us is Elizabeth Reid, who not only cares for her own relatives, but she also runs a helpline for carers in Scotland. Elizabeth, have you worked out whether or not the changes to the benefits system are going to leave carers better or worse off?
Well, it depends again, like Sally was saying, when they get through the maze. They won't be better off in money terms, most of them, because invalid care allowance is not paid to every carer. The only carer who will benefit from the new simplified system will be a carer with an employed husband. Any other carer, if they're a one-parent family, if they look after their husband, if they have a handicapped child and their husband's not working, people like that will lose out, because even though they are claiming an invalid care allowance, in real cash terms, they are not getting this because it's being deducted from other benefits.
But on the other hand, we don't want to put people off from claiming it, because there's a good reason why women in particular should claim it.
This is very true, Margot. People must claim invalid care allowance. I am sick of the phone calls from people who have said, I've been told not to claim because I won't be financially better off. They will benefit from a first-class national insurance stamp. They will get a £10 Christmas bonus. And at the moment, it covers their unemployment stamp.
Up until April the 11th, are there not benefits that parents or carers for handicapped children on SUP Ben should be claiming just now?
Yes, they must see that they've got diet additions, laundry additions, heating additions. They must see that all these additions, and then this transitional protection will help when the new system comes in. But they must be claiming them now.
Right, Elizabeth, thank you. And thanks also to Sally Robertson, who has got other things in her mind just now. However, if there's one thing that's certain, it's that on April the 11th and in the months following, there's going to be a great deal of confusion as people try to get to grips with the new system. And of course, that doesn't just mean people claiming benefits. DHSS officers and independent advisors will also have a lot of relearning to do. And the confusion caused by the changes will inevitably lead to mistakes being made. So, here are a few advice shop suggestions on what to do if you're not happy, either with the way your benefit is calculated or with the service you receive from the DHSS or local authority. If you think you're being paid the wrong amount of benefit, or if you're refused a benefit that you think you're entitled to, you should first seek advice from the nearest independent advice centre. And these include the CAB, law centres, welfare right agencies, or any other advice agency in your area. At any of these places, advice will be free and confidential. And it's not just advice. Most of these organisations will act on your behalf, and they'll represent you at an appeal tribunal if necessary. Now, you may want to sort things out on your own, or you might not have a choice if there are no advice agencies in your area and you just have to sort them out on your own. So how do you go about it? If the DHSS make a decision you disagree with, you have the right of appeal to an independent tribunal. You should put your appeal in writing within 3 months of getting a decision from the DHSS. Although, if it's your housing benefit that you're not happy with, then you should write to your local council, because it's the council and not the DHSS that handles housing benefit. Although there is one big gap in the whole appeal process, and that's the social fund. You can't appeal against the decision of the social fund officer. You can only ask the DHSS for a review, so do get advice before you apply to the social fund. However, since we've got all these guests here, I think they should have the last word on advice. Todd, advice for young people as regards the changes?
Well, I think if you get the chance of a temporary job, you should really think about it before you take it and seek advice, because there could be the chance that if you work for a period longer than 8 weeks, that you could lose your transitional benefits and go back down to £26, 5 pence a week.
Not a happy thought.
Not happy at all.
Elizabeth?
Well, MPs, all these sort of people, we must free the invalid care allowance. I want it a free benefit like the attendance allowance and the mobility allowance. I want that for carers all over the country.
Here, here. Lillian, what would you be advising pensioners to do?
To fight, and not to take no from the DHSS, and to appeal and appeal and appeal. Because if they go for a tribunal, they're picked up at the door in taxi and taken and brought back again. So it's all laid on just like that.
Is that why you go to all these tribunals?
That's right, yes. Yes.
Grace, very last word to you.
I'd just advise everyone to go to some action group or some sort of advice centre to make sure they're claiming what they should be now before the new changes come about.
Thanks, all of you. Now, if you want to read up on any of the benefits changes that we've covered, you can get our free booklet, Shake Up, by writing to this address. Advice Shop, Benefits Changes, BBC TV, London W12 8QT. Once again, that's Advice Shop, and mark your envelope, Benefits Changes, BBC TV, London W12 8QT. Oh, and could you please enclose a large self-addressed envelope with a 20 pence stamp? The address to write to is under our billing in the Radio Times. And that's the last advice shop in our present series. However, in Ask Margot this Thursday afternoon, I'll be talking to the Minister for Social